Okay. Can I call tonight's meeting to order? It's the meeting for our regular town board meeting for March 20th of 2018. If I could ask our honorary Riverhead Town ambassadors, Girl Scout Troop number 220 and 1941, to stand and start the pledge for us. So now I'll turn the meeting over to Jim Wooten.
Every meeting we try to have an invocation, and we always reach out to people in the community as well as our local churches to supply someone to lead us in that invocation. And we're very pleased to have with us a Riverhead resident from Jamesport area that's willing to come and lead us in invocation, Mr. Larry Sim.
Thanks, Jim. Always excited to see young voters turn out. Supervisor and council members, it's been many years since I got my degree in philosophy of religion, but I haven't forgotten my studies. I learned that in any faith, those who loudly proclaim their piety are rarely pious. Those who boast of their humility are never humble. For some, claiming everything is God's will can be an excuse to shirk responsibility for their own actions. And I learned that with any faith, the teachings and words which form its foundation are sometimes twisted to justify positions and actions wholly antithetical to the founder's ideals. This space belongs to all Riverhead citizens, regardless of their faith, ethnicity, language, or culture. I appreciate being welcomed here today without declaring a religious or political affiliation. I commend the board and I implore you to maintain this welcoming spirit and the message of openness and tolerance. I also implore you to think deeply about trust. In my personal life, I long ago made a choice to trust people unless they give me reason not to. I imagine some or all of you do likewise in your personal lives. In my professional life, I can't do this. My decisions and actions must safeguard the interests of my employees, architects, contractors, and all the people that occupy buildings using my products. These concerns are a powerful influence, causing me to do more research, check more references, and negotiate more carefully than if I'm deciding just for myself. Because you are fiduciaries, you similarly have to consider the impact of every decision you make on all your constituents and on all town employees. It's a solemn responsibility and a heavy burden. I recently spoke of a councilman who famously made a declaration of faith in the honesty of a notorious developer. I won't repeat the anecdote, but I'll suggest that it's both helpful and healthy for you to remind yourselves often that as elected officials, you don't have the luxury of going with your gut. You sacrificed that freedom when you took the oath of office, and it's a hard habit to break. I know. Compounding the problem of working harder to make decisions and sometimes needing to put others' interests above your own is the fact that many of your decisions and actions won't fully take effect until years after you've left public life. Your paths are not just enormously challenging, they can also be lonely. When any of you, after research, deliberation, and in good conscience, take an unpopular position, find yourself out of step with your party, or perhaps hardest, reverse course from an earlier position, it can be difficult to stand your ground without buckling under the inevitable pressure. I applaud you for accepting this challenge. Try to remember that when you set examples by conducting objective research and then doing what you know is right rather than what's politically expedient, two things will happen. You'll earn your constituents' respect, and you can count on many at Town Hall, staff, department heads, and colleagues to follow your lead. There's a lot of talent on this board and throughout Town Hall, together with considerable dedication to the well-being of the people of Riverhead. As you go forward, do your best to think not just about the many constituents you know, but particularly about the ones you don't know. Try to focus not just on those who are successful, but especially on the least fortunate among us. By remembering that your decisions and actions impact all, you'll be more effective at improving the whole of our community. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Larry.
Here she comes. Oh my God.
Hear ye. Hear ye, listen. It's 7 o'clock and all is well. It's 7 o'clock and all is well. I have wonderful news. The stagecoach has arrived from Albany, and it has significant news for all our people. And our Madam Supervisor is going to tell us about it. Madam Supervisor.
Thank you. I'd like to read to you the New York State law establishing the town of Riverhead. It was passed the 13th of March in 1792 by an act of New York State Legislature establishing the town of Riverhead reads as follows. Whereas many of the freeholders and inhabitants of Southold in Suffolk County have presented to the legislature that their town is so long that it is very inconvenient for them to attend at town meetings and also to transact the other necessary business of the said town, and have prayed that the same may be divided into 2 houses. Therefore, be it enacted by the people of the state of New York, represented in state and assembly, that part of the said town of Southold lying to the westward of the line beginning at the Sound and running henceforth southerly to the bay separating the town of Southampton and Southold, and which is the easterly boundary of the side of a farm now in the tenure of occupation of William Albertson, and is the reputed line of division between the parishes of Aquabog and Mattertuck, shall from and after the first Monday in April next be erected into a distinct and separate town by the name of Riverhead, and the first town meeting of the inhabitants of the said town shall be held at the dwelling house of John Griffin at the Riverhead, and that said town shall enjoy all the rights, privileges, and immunities which are granted to the other towns within the state by an act of legislature passed the 7th of March, 1788, entitled An Act for Dividing the Counties of this State into Towns. And be it further enacted that the poor of the town of Southold on the first and the town of Riverhead in such proportions as the overseers of the poor for the same being of said town respectively shall agree, and in case of disagreement of the said overseers, then in such proportions as the supervisor of the county at their next annual meeting shall direct and contingent charges and expenses of the town of Southold that have already arisen or shall arise before the 1st in April next, shall be assessed, levied, and paid in the same manner as if this act had not passed.
Madam Supervisor,
Thank you.
Thank you.
and happy birthday. You're 226 years old. Wow.
And Georgette Case is our town historian, so if you're ever looking stuff up, she's the lady to contact. So thank you. And I know that you Girl Scouts have school tomorrow, so we're just gonna have a moment of silence, and if you don't wanna stay for the whole meeting, we understand that also. So if we could all just stand for a moment of silence.
For Staff Sergeant Briggs.
Thank you. And thank you to him for all his service and all that he's given for our country.
Wait a second. Girl Scouts, do you want a picture with the town board or up here? Parents, Girl Scouts, to show that they did their community service, to show you guys were here? Come on, Girl Scouts. Come over this way, girls.
Come over this way, children.
Shut up.
What'd you say?
All right, everybody say cheese.
Cheese and Patrick. Donuts and Bennett.
The Northeaster. And we hope to be voting for you guys too in a couple of years from here.
Thank you, girls.
Thank you, guys, thank you.
Bye, girls.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget, we're calling you for, cleanup day. Okay, can I have a first and a second for the approval of the town board minutes of March 6, 2018, and the special town board meeting of March 27, 2018?
I'll make that motion.
I second it.
First and seconded vote, please.
Kent,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Giglio,
Yes.
Wooten,
Yeah.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
The minutes are approved. You want me to just go right into
Yeah.
it? Okay. Under correspondence, we had two letters expressing concerns over the proposed legislation to amend chapter 251, that is noise, public nuisances, and property maintenance. Article 3, rubbish, refuse, and rank vegetation, that's with regard to bamboo, and that public hearing is on the 3rd of April. And those letters were from Beth Peterson and Eric Peterson. Under reports, tax receiver, total tax collection to date as of March 14th, $89,434,389.17. The tax receiver also submitted their March utility collection report for $476,050. And that's it.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make one comment and just some information for the board. After last night's qualified and eligible hearing, we had closed the public comment period and we had left it open for written comment till April 6th. But in doing so, we realized that the information that we had requested of the applicant, the day coming in was the same day as that we ended written comment for the public. So we have reached out to the applicant to ask them if they could send their correspondence prior to the April 6th deadline, to allow the public time to review the information. If we do not receive it before April 6th, I think at that point we can discuss whether we want to leave the written comment period open for the public. It was a question that was raised last night, so I just wanted to address that. So we have 4 public hearings tonight, so I'd like to call the first public hearing, which is the consideration of a proposed local law to amend Chapter 289 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Vehicles, Traffic and Parking Regulations, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, 289-2, Stop and Yield Intersections, Railroad Crossings, Parking Fields, Mastro Road, and the Preserve and Youngs Avenue. If anybody would like to come up and speak?
So this is basically a subdivision was created, but in the subdivision approval, there weren't any stop signs at the intersections. So this is adding stop signs at the intersections.
Seeing no one, we will move on to the next public hearing. This public hearing was scheduled for 7:10, it is now 7:18. This is the consideration of proposed local law to amend chapter 301 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Zoning and Land Development, Article 45, Supplemental Use Regulations 301-231, Off-Street Parking. This is a public hearing to address the parking in the downtown DC1 zone in the parking district area. Those that will have, it's hotels, everything being used other than any residential use. So it would apply to apartments, hotels, and multifamily dwellings would now have to observe the parking schedule that we have in the rest of town.
And Madam Supervisor and members of the board, seeing as I own property in downtown Riverhead, I am going to recuse myself from the hearing, and I will be in my office, and I will be abstaining from the vote. Excuse me.
There's no vote
What?
tonight.
I know, but
Would you wanna see if somebody comes up for public comment? Did anybody wanna come up for public comment? Yeah. Okay.
My name is Peter Lucas. I am Vice Chair for the Landmarks and Preservation Commission for the town of Riverhead. And we strongly support requiring new development to have specified parking spaces for themselves. We are concerned that future pressures from merchants, visitors, tenants, requiring the town to take more land for parking, and this is our reason for supporting. We used to have a First Street. First Street is gone. There were 2 houses left to First Street. So that was now the parking lot behind Woolworths. So we would not like to see that continue, and that's why we wholeheartedly support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, supervisors, members of the town board. My name is Martin Senleski. I'm here to offer a few comments with regard to the pending legislation. 2 things. One, just from a procedural standpoint, I presume that the town board is the lead agency regarding this action. I would presume that you're the lead agency. If so, has the project been classified with regard to whether it's a type 1 and unlisted or a type 2 action under SECR?
I do not know for sure.
Okay.
I don't, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay, also, the next question would be whether or not it had, any determination had been made with regard to significance at this point, prior to the hearing tonight.
No.
Because if it was an unlisted action, and if it were deemed to be significant, which I believe under SECR it would be, that would then require this to actually be a scoping hearing, which then would require preparation of a draft environmental impact study, acceptance of that study, further review. I think this is more than just a simple code amendment. If you go under SECR, you review the requirements. Under a 617.7, there are requirements that refer to actions that are materially in conflict with adopted plans, such as the master plan. So it may be something that falls under SECR as an unlisted action, and it may be significant. In terms of what you're doing, you may want to be very careful to confirm that, because under SECR, the a revision, if passed, would not stand up if somebody challenged it if you didn't follow the SECR steps. So it may be something you may want to just verify prior to acting on the actual resolution. With regard to the body of the resolution and what's happening, the way that it's being adopted, or what's being proposed, is basically a one-size-fits-all revision to the code, saying, all right, if you're a resident down, DC1, go per the parking code and provide
Within
parking.
the parking district.
Within the
If
parking
you're
district.
built per-
Right.
It's
You'd
not
have-
necessarily DC1, but
That's
if you're
correct.
located within the parking district.
That is
I-
correct,
yeah.
right. So you'd have to provide parking on site. essentially for residential uses in the future. The code is 1.5 spaces per unit. I think you might want to prorate that because, you know, in apartments, you're going to have 3-bedroom apartments and you're going to have studio apartments. You're going to have apartments of different size. So when you look at this, you may want to prorate the parking that's required. For example, maybe the largest unit would be the 1.5, a small unit may be 1.25, a 1-bedroom could be 1, and a studio could be 0.75. What that does is it sort of balances the mix in terms of the actual parking required. It would also guide developers in terms of the type of units they're going to specify, because the type of units, which also impacts the population downtown, would flex somewhat based on how much parking they could accommodate. So I think you know, taking a look at it and not just doing a one-size-fits-all would be advisable. Also, I think what you need to do is you need to include other options. The options could include a payment in lieu of parking to the parking district for future parking considerations and expansions.
I think there's been discussion for how to address that. I think that's a continuing, ongoing discussion.
Sure, okay. Because some small lots, you're basically going to shut them out. You know, they wouldn't be able to develop apartments because it's impossible for them to meet the code. Also, you need to also consider in the code credit for existing uses. A good example of that would be the Woolworth building, which I worked on with Michael Butler, who's here. In that case, we had a second floor, which was office use and part of the retail use, and it was converted to apartments. Now, if you were to adopt the law the way it's written, that would not be allowed to happen, because there would obviously no place to park on the Woolworth site, because the building covers the entire property. But just as an example, the second floor there is 15,391 square feet. If you took the 200 square foot per car parking regulation for, you know, office and retail uses, that would actually mean that that second floor could use up to 76 cars, where the 19 units at 1.5 cars, which is the current proposed, would only require 30 cars. So it would actually be a reduction. However, the way the code would be written would not even allow for that project to happen. You know, the same could hold true for, let's say, the vacant Sweezy's building. If somebody bought that and said, you know, I want to put some apartments, you know, in the upper level, or add some apartments and get rid of the lower level use and use that for storage, they could then credit that and sort of still be able to do the project, as opposed to the way the code would be adopted now, which would basically shut that project completely out. I think a couple of other things that the town board should consider is, in addition to the code for parking in terms of physical spaces, is to look at some code amendments that will allow owners and landlords to give us some authority to in dealing with tenants. And what I would think might be a good idea to investigate would be a requirement in the code that residential tenants would be required to register their vehicles with the landlord, you know, the make, model, plate number, and they would be required to have a sticker, basically a resident parking sticker. Now, the sticker wouldn't benefit them, giving them privilege. The sticker would take away privilege, meaning if you have the sticker on your car, you cannot park in a limited time parking spot. You cannot park on the street. So if you did, you would get ticketed immediately. So in other words, you take the people that are living here who park long overnight, and you make them park in the areas that are going to be further away from the storefronts where you currently have your limited parking.
Problem is, who polices that permit that person actually goes and puts it on their car? They
Well,
don't put
it's,
it on
you know,
their
I
car,
mean,
they can park on the street.
right
park
now, we
anywhere they
can't do
want.
anything because there's nothing that would encourage us to do that. But if, as a landlord, if we could write in the lease, look, if you have to give us, you know, your vehicle information, and you have to have the sticker on your car, and if you're found not to comply, you can be, you know, your lease could be
But I
terminated.
assure you, the landlords are not gonna go out and check 170 vehicles in the parking lot
No,
to see if
but,
those
you know, I
stickers
mean,
on. It's a faulty.
at least it lends itself towards some type of better usage of the parking that we have.
The better idea might be to have a designated area for those people to park, and then you can only park there with
Correct.
the sticker.
Yeah, essentially it would be
That way
similar.
it's much
That is
easier
correct.
to police.
Right, that is correct. Essentially, that sticker would mean that you can only park in the areas,
Correct.
the non-prime areas.
Right.
You know, you see that now with the culinary. They pretty much voluntarily, when I walk through that parking lot, I see the kids, they do park along the back fence for the most part and
Yeah,
walk
I've
to the culinary
contacted
school.
them and asked them to do
And that's
that.
voluntary, but that's a good thing.
Right.
You know, them doing that is actually a very, a good thing. And then I think you know, you would have to do some enforcement and ticket violators. I also think another thing to consider, which is not a part of the code amendment, but I think you really have to start considering going back to metered parking on the street. And I think you may want to consider metered parking in the short-term areas behind the stores, where, you know, the spots are numbered and you have a meter kiosk that you
Right.
put a sticker on your window.
Mhm.
I know, for example, when I talked to Tony at Main Street Haircutters, there's residents, you know, residential apartments in those buildings. And he says, you know, there's one resident, he parks right in the spot in front of the hair place.
And it's there all day.
He's there all day,
Right.
and it takes up a parking space
Yeah.
and people can't pull in to get a haircut.
Well, I think there's a lot of levels that it needs to be addressed on, and this is one of the areas that we're trying to address. Also in the resolutions tonight, we've tightened up the ability to police where people park downtown with ticketing people. We're also assessing all of the signs downtown for the hours that you can park there. We have a grant that we've had, that has come in that we're accepting to then assess what is the most beneficial, to the commercial district downtown. So that will be to start very soon. So we're trying to address it on many different, levels and in many different ways so that we can come up with solutions that are gonna work. You know, as, you know, just reading your stuff up, you know, it's not a one-shot solution.
Right.
So we appreciate all the feedback, and we'll review what you said, and as I said, it's not a one-shot solution, so we are working very hard. It's not something that it's not something on the back burner. We're definitely looking at it very
Yeah,
aggressively.
With that said, what I would do is I wouldn't pass this resolution. I would really take a more comprehensive sort of, you know, approach. I'm on the parking committee, actually with Councilman Hubbard as the liaison. And I think if the town board, as opposed to just, you know, starting this way, and the intent is good, but it's really regulation for the sake of regulation that's not really gonna solve the problem. I would rather the board step back from this resolution, take a more rounded approach that looks at, you know, different variables and maybe codify some of these other types of things that could happen, because it'll just improve the usability of what's there now and, you know, would help. I think if you just pass this right now and nothing's passed immediately, there are some people that their property values are gonna tank, and they're not, you know, certain projects like Woolworth would have never been able to have happened if a code like this were in existence. So it's very important to look at from more of a broad-based approach.
Well, that's why we have the public hearing, just for those reasons, so we can get the public's comments before we make any decisions, so we
Okay.
appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Michael Butler, and my company is Woolworth Revitalization, and as Marty said, we did a project there, and I think basically the problem with some of the regulations is that the town, where the properties are on the waterfront side, and other places, it's impractical to build right on site a lot of times. Either there's all municipal lots that adjoin you, so, you know, you don't have your own property to build on. So I think that there's gonna be, it's very good that the board is taking a stance to try to address the problem, because down the road, if there's a couple of hundred more units of housing, there is gonna be an issue for different, tenants. For instance, I'm here with, Frank, whose company, Stefano, owns the gym, and Maximus Gym that's in the Woolworth building. And, you know, right now, you know, trying to stay in business is always tough, but they have the benefit of being able to use some of the municipal parking lot, but if a lot of residential comes, then it might be very hard. In the same area, every time we build more units, I'm a believer that you know, the restaurants are gonna be busier, the gym's gonna be busier, so I kinda think it shouldn't be an all or one approach. And I'm also a member of the Business Improvement District, so, you know, I'm not here to give the whole thing, like you said, you're looking at it, there's a lot of things to do, whether it's meters, it's true. People complain, I know the florist in Riverhead Florist, she complains because people go and park in front, so there's no way you can allow people to just park their cars who are working in these stores all day in front of it, and it sounds like you're thinking about this, but I think the pile-up, the payment is a very, good way to start thinking about it, especially when you look at the geography of the places, but also it might be included with offices as well, not just be all the burden on residential, so. The bottom line, I'm not really getting particular the issue, the bid. I'm not here as an official bid, but we've been talking about it as one of the issues in the meeting. And I think, like Marty said, a comprehensive approach, because we definitely need down the road to build more parking in Riverhead. But on the other hand, if we're gonna make it so difficult for businesses to open that you have a huge expense requirement for opening a business with a large pile-up, then people might, or the same thing with residential. Residential, you pay into the sewer district, you pay a lot of fees already, and so, but I think that, considering the geography, might be a good way to have a balanced approach that lets people build, attracts new businesses to downtown, but, recognizes that down the road, there is gonna be a problem for parking, so that we do both produce more parking spots for everyone and decide on, the regulations, whether residents should have a sticker for one area. That's beyond the scope of today. But I actually didn't even know about this meeting till a little while ago, and someone told me about it. And, but I know that we've talked a lot about it in the bid, and I know the parking district. And so I just think that has to be taken into account, that the geography, where is someone gonna build if they don't have any place on site to build, or if it turns out you're trying to do an underground garage that makes the project twice as expensive, then it doesn't make sense. And we're still in this mode where we need to attract people to come build apartments, open businesses in Riverhead, because it's not so easy, and the businesses are up against, hard times when I speak to the tenants in the buildings. And so, thank you for the time, and look forward with a bid to trying and find comprehensive solutions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ike Israel. My company is Richmond Realty. I'm also an owner at 309 East Main Street, which is Miramax LLC. That's where the Blue Duck Bakery is, and Ralph's Ices, and the Farmer's Kitchen. And we bought that building in 2007 after the master plan was adopted in 2004. And I think by adopting, we have about a 6,500 square foot building on a 7,500 square foot lot, which is basically landlocked. But by implementing this resolution, I'm not going to be able to go up the 5 stories that I had a right to go up to as per the code. So it's kind of like a moratorium that you're doing. To build office space today without parking is very, very tricky to do. Our tenants require it by not having that. I don't know what other kind of uses you expect to go upstairs. It's always either been office or apartments, but you're taking away my property rights, I feel, by passing this resolution without offering any other alternative. And basically anybody else that can't provide parking on their own site. I know there's a lot of talk about the apartments that we have, and I know that we really want to see market rate apartments, but nobody's gonna be able to build apartments if there's no, or it's gonna be very limited based on the properties that are there to be able to accommodate 1.5 spaces per apartment. We're gonna basically give up any more future real density of what's left, if that's your intention. But I think a lot of properties are not gonna be able to have apartments because they aren't gonna be able to have any spots. There's quite a handful of handful of properties that don't have any additional land as well. I am on the parking district also, and I do agree that we need to come up with a comprehensive plan to try to address it. That's all.
Okay,
Thank you.
See you Thursday at the parking district meeting.
Seeing nobody else, did anybody else want to come up and speak?
Good evening, Jefferson Murphy, Building and Planning Administrator. I just want to give you a different point of view in all this. Yes, we're conducting our secret review of the proposed law. There's one section of the code that hasn't been talked about this evening, I think that's worth noting. This is under section 301-141. It's a note. It says, subsequent to the date of enactment of this article, upon issuance of certificate of occupancy for 500 residential units, such as set forth in subsection A12 of this section, shall be prohibited within the DC1 zoning use district. Those are all the downtown. When you look at all the existing, not all, but some of the existing built, constructed, approved but not built, and site plan applications we have before us, we're already there. We're almost at 500 dwelling units now. If we add one more project to that list, we're gonna be over that 500 dwelling threshold. And the question is, do we tell Mr. Israel, I'm sorry, you can get your site plan approval, but you can't get certificate of occupancy for it because you're over that 500 dwelling unit threshold in the code. So people talk about property rights and compliance with zoning. Well, there is a section in the zoning that says there's a cap for apartments in the downtown of 500 units, and we're almost there. So we need to do something about this now. And if you just take a look at the two projects that have been submitted for site plan review, 203-213 East Main Street and Suffolk Theater, those, if they complied with the parking requirements, would have to provide 293 parking spaces. I'm not sure the downtown can absorb another 293 parking spaces. I'm sure the merchants would find issue with having to give up another 293 parking spaces in the downtown, just for those two projects alone, not including the Zenith building, not including some of the others that are being contemplated. So we're at the threshold already.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
John?
Good for us.
What do you do? Seeing nobody else, I will close this public hearing and leave it open for written comment until March 29th. With the previous public hearing that's also open for written comment until March 29th. Okay, I will call the third public hearing that was supposed to start at 7:15. It is now 7:42. The consideration of a proposed local law to amend Chapter 289 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Vehicles, Traffic, and Parking Regulations, Article 9, Snow Events.
Hello, Lady Supervisor, Town Council members. As a citizen of New York, Riverhead, I would like to take the opportunity to
Could you
first
just
thank
please
you.
state your name first?
Ellen Hoyle.
Yes.
Sorry. As a lawyer, I would also like to bring to your attention something that may be going overlooked by the board and others. In February of this year, Maine Dairy Company agreed to a $5 million settlement with drivers who had sued the company over a list of tasks that they were required to do and thus be paid overtime for. You will, I hope, note that the slight pause in that last sentence. The pause is thanks to what's called an Oxford comma. The action was settled based entirely on the findings of the First District Court of Appeals decision that examined the statute passed by the Maine legislature. The decision noted the lack of an Oxford comma, a comma defined as the second comma in a series of things, ideas, or other lists. lead to enough ambiguity as to allow the case to proceed. The matter arose out of a line in a statute which carved out exemptions for overtime pay. It was read, the canning, processing, preserving, freezing, drying, marketing, storing, packing for shipment and distribution of, and then listed certain items. The court ruled that it was not clear whether the law exempted the distribution of the three categories that followed or exempted just the packing and shipment and distribution of. What was lacking, and what would have saved the company $5 million, was a comma for after shipment. I have spent some time reading the various statutes and resolutions that are on the books of this town or are about to be passed, such as this one. The chapter tonight is Chapter 289, Article 1, Part 1, Article 9, Snow Events. The resolution looks to add subsection 289-49, road closures. The statute which lists the various conditions and situations under which road closures can be made and how they can be closed lacks a single comma. I'm not sure who is in charge of drafting these statutes, but the manner in which it is being done can leave the town and its citizens in a state of confusion. For example, it reads, the declaration of a snow event, winter storm, or local emergency orders may designate or declare certain highways or roads closed, such that vehicles travel or prohibit during. The statute, which takes up over 5 lines, lacks a single comma. I only draw your attention to this slight but potentially significant detail to avoid a potentially costly grammatical error when drafting and approving further resolutions in the future.
Which section is it, 289, 49, which?
Well, 48 is what you just read.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry,
289-49,
okay.
road closures.
Okay,
The entire thing lacks a single comma.
okay.
Thank you for your consideration in this and in future drafting of resolutions.
Thank you.
And I only caught the tail end of that, I'm sorry, I was on the phone with a constituent, but I was told that the highway superintendent wants to close all the roads from the north to the south during a snow event.
She wasn't,
That had nothing to do with the statement.
When it came to road closure, 289-48.
but she's talking about the form.
The format of the statute.
The way it's written,
Okay.
not about the substance.
That's my concern.
No, it wasn't the substance
It's
as
just
to the
plan to
form of
close
the
all the roads
statute.
from north to south.
No, it had to do with the form of the statute, taking up over 5 lines and not having a comma.
Right.
Oh.
Right,
It's a
like,
giant run-on
yeah,
sentence.
it's like without taking a breath.
Yeah.
I get it.
Who wrote this? Let me have a guess.
A lot of the ones that I've come across so far have been like that,
Right, yeah. Well,
and that's what I find confusing. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Me
you.
too. There's another thing in there I saw, just for housekeeping, when you go to the second page, it says B, it's called the supervisor, his designee shall notify at least one local, and then
It's media, because it was radio.
is it one local media outlet or one
Yes,
local media?
where?
That you gotta really add outlet or something, not just one
What
local
page is
media.
that
Local media.
Yes.
Okay.
And is there anybody else from the public that's
Oh, no.
looking to speak on this? Because
Local-
I have
local
some concerns.
something. Just local media.
So, 289-46, declaration of snow or winter storm emergency, it says that in underline, in addition to and during the declaration of snow or winter storm emergency, the supervisor or his or her designee may promulgate local emergency orders to protect life, property, or bring emergency situation under control. And I can tell you that our supervisor was thrown into a very difficult situation her first week in office with probably one of the biggest snowstorms that we've ever had. And there were meetings held with the highway superintendent and with the chief of police where there were roads that were closed, that weren't opened, there was no safe travel, there was cars actually perched on mounds because the plows had gone around them. And it was a very dangerous situation, I agree. But when I called the chief of police and the highway superintendent and I said, the supervisor is texting the town board saying that she's going to call the county to bring the county in to help remove the vehicles from the roadways, and, you know, whatever else is needed in order to make the roads passageable and safe for our residents. And I admire that, I really do. But I kept asking the question, how much is this going to cost us? Because in speaking to supervisors of other towns where the county's been called in, they have charged. They may not have charged in this snow event, but they charge. So what declares an emergency where you call the county in? And when I spoke to the chief and the deputy highway superintendent on a conference call, or actually the chief and the deputy, because Gio had worked 40 hours, God bless him, and Hope was home sleeping. When I spoke with the chief and the deputy highway superintendent, and I asked the supervisor in a text, did they ask for assistance? And she said, yes, they did. And then when I spoke to them, they said, we didn't ask for assistance. So, and then Tim Hubbard also called the chief of police and the deputy highway superintendent and said, did they ask for assistance? And he said, because I'm told that they didn't, and let them do their jobs, and by the time the county gets here, it's probably already gonna be cleared up. So that's my concern in this, in that local emergency orders, like what declares the actual emergency? And I think that it should start from the highway superintendent saying, I can't handle this. And that's not what they were saying.
Well,
They
actually,
said we have 5 roads left to clear, and we have maybe 12 abandoned vehicles on the roads.
It was 30.
Well, you changed that because your text said there were like 18,
I have
but
a
now
couple of
it's-
schools of thought on the whole conversation. First off, it's Laura's, just because she got elected supervisor is why we had the bad storm, because if you remember when. If you remember when.
And I'm keeping it going through March, so.
And I'm not poking fun, but if you remember when Sean got elected, we
I
had the
do
floods.
remember.
So, I mean, it was floods of fire with him
Wait
and
a second,
snow
it
with
was
you.
even a bomb
I'm not criticizing the way she
No,
handled it,
but the
but
way
this
is,
concerns me.
Jody, the way this is written, the chief of police, the superintendent of highway shall be notified immediately following the snow, winter, storm emergency. So they are on board. In addition, and during the declaration of snow, winter, snow emergency, the supervisor, or his or her designee may promulgate local emergency orders to protect life and property or bring emergency situation under control. I can tell you right now, I don't care what it costs. If it costs one life, it's too much.
Yeah,
So,
but you know what, there was
the
already an emergency
supervisor
to
has
stay
to
off
be-
the roads.
The supervisor
So-
has to be empowered to do what has to be done, any way that it can be done.
I
And-
disagree, because you know what,
Well,
the chief of
I'm
police and the
sorry.
highway superintendent
Well,
said,
then-
we have it under control, and she said, I'm calling Balone.
Well, whoever,
Just-
I'll call the president, I'll get Trump out of here, the problem, I don't care.
To clarify, because Jody threw my name in the mix, and I prefer you wouldn't, I would prefer I talk about what I did
I
and
have
what
the
I said.
text messages, if
That's
anybody
fine.
wants to see.
I spoke with the supervisor, I spoke with the chief of police, and I spoke with the deputy highway superintendent. The supervisor was en route to the location where the chief of police and the deputy highway supervisor were. Once she got to that location, it was determined that they may not have asked for assistance in terms of plowing the roads, but they agreed for assistance from the county with tow trucks to get some of the cars out of the roadway so the highway guys could do their job. Our highway crew was capable of handling the storm minus having cars in the way. So the problem was to get the cars out of the way, and that was the assistance that was gonna be required from the county. And that was formulated, again, just a couple days on the job. It was formulated in conjunction, and I think in a pretty good working relationship with the chief, the deputy highway superintendent, and the supervisor. There was some confusion during the text and things going back and forth, but it all got straightened out, and I think it was handled very well.
Okay, and anybody that wants to see the text, let me know.
And just for clarification, before anybody, before we reached out for assistance, there was a conversation that took place between the chief of police, the deputy from the highway superintendent, and then the available services from the county. There was I believe, a county state of emergency at the time, a state state of emergency at the time, so there was no charge to the town to call in the assistance that we needed. We were all together on a conference call, to decide if we needed any assistance to remove some of the cars, or if we needed assistance for plowing, or whatever assistance that we might need to get the emergency under control. And we all conferenced together. It was decided that we could use some assistance with having some tow trucks to come out, to help remove some of the cars. We all agreed on it. They showed up, they helped us clear some of the cars, and we were able to get everything under control, very efficiently. So I think that everybody did what needed to be done to keep everybody safe, to keep the roads open, and to keep everything passable. So, that was a decision I made as supervisor, and I did reach out to the town board, to, let them know what was going on. I
6
felt
o'clock in the morning, I remember my phone going
in
off.
transparency, that I wanted to let them know what was happening in the town. I don't know that was normal practice. When I spoke to the other board members, they said that generally that the decisions were just made. And I didn't feel that's what I wanted to do. I felt that it was important to let everybody know what was going on. I knew that they would be, people would be calling them and talking to them.
I'll show
So
you the
that's-
text messages.
that's
The
what-
first one was, I'm calling Balone, pretty much.
Well, maybe that's the first one you
Well,
saw,
I
but
don't-
that
I
wasn't
don't-
the first
I'm
one,
reading-
that's
I'm
not the
reading-
first phone call I gave you.
I'm reading this declaration, and I don't see that in here, but it doesn't say anything about the law.
In going back, everyone came out of the storm safely. It was a terrible storm, and there were cars
Wait till tomorrow.
abandoned everywhere, and I agree with Jim. Jim, it worked out well, and, no one was hurt. So let's stick
You're
with
right.
that, instead of going back over old things.
I hate to belabor it, but let me just chime in from,
no.
not
Come
dealing
on, we
from a
just-
factual standpoint,
started.
not from a factual
Bob,
standpoint.
you weren't in on the
I,
text.
that's what I'm saying, I'm not gonna deal with it from a factual standpoint. I'm just dealing with the question of, what can be done under New York State Executive Law, Section 24. Because it makes reference to Section 24, which is a procedure under state law that allows the chief fiscal officer or the chief executive officer of a town, county, or state to declare a local emergency.
And
So that is one of the things that the legislation enables the executive officer to do. And it makes reference to that, because that's one of the things that was added to the code. It's probably redundant, because the state law already allows that to be done. And when there is a declared state of emergency, certain things can also be done by what's called a local order, which involves road closure or other things of like kind in order to ensure safety. So, again, I'm not gonna comment on the facts, because I'm
And
not
I would
familiar
like
with
to say that I think the order should come from the highway superintendent. I can't handle it, I need help, bring them in. And that order goes to the supervisor, who makes the phone call to bring them in. The highway, to the chief of police, to the supervisor.
And then-
That's the order in which I think it should go.
I disagree.
So do I.
I disagree, because when somebody's in trouble, they're not calling the highway department, they're calling the police department.
They're calling the police, and the police is calling the highway department and saying, can you help me get
Right,
into
but
this
the
road?
police department is really the catalyst that gets things moving.
That's okay, we've
Didn't you
disagreed
work as a
before.
team?
And
You
you're
were
the police
working as a team.
commissioner, so
We
that's the
were.
way it goes.
It was
Okay.
teamwork.
It
and
was
I
teamwork,
went well.
but the final decision, that somebody has to make the final decision, and that final decision is made by me.
Right.
I certainly
State law
respect
says
the chief's opinion, I certainly, respect Gio's opinion, but when there's an emergency situation, there has to be a decision made, and it, doesn't always have to be, can't always be made by consensus, and that's what happens.
Geo doesn't have the authority
And
to
in my
spend our
opinion,
money.
I leave the experts up to, and I think that's what Tim referred to, let the experts handle this. I think the highway superintendent and the chief of police have it under control.
Jody, you may have disagreed with my opinion. I did consult with them, you don't have to agree with my opinion of what I chose to do, but it doesn't change the fact that I still need to make the final decision.
Well, I think this was created based on, and this particular segment of this law is based on giving the supervisor the authority, and I think it should be with the highway superintendent and the chief of police. And telling the supervisor, I need help,
Well, you're alone on that.
we need to do.
You're alone
Okay.
on that.
Okay.
Because state law doesn't permit that.
Okay,
State law,
it's a public hearing and
only the supervisor of town of Riverhead can spend funds. Highway supervisor cannot spend our funds.
The way it played out, there was no decision made without speaking
to the highway superintendent or the deputy at the time and the chief of police. So it's all for naught what you're saying.
And you know what I was
All three
told?
were talked to, she was at the location with them physically, because the last time I spoke with them, I spoke to all three of them on speakerphone on the call. So it's any decision being made was being made in conjunction with them.
And you know what I
And
was
it was
told? That the
communication.
highway superintendent and the chief of police said, we have this under control, and she said, I'm calling Balone, and they said, okay. That's what I was told.
Anybody else wanna be heard on this?
Seeing nobody
No?
else?
Okay, so nobody else?
I will close the public hearing, and I will leave it open for written comment till March 29th.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take control
Where are we now here?
of that.
Next one, right? All right, the last public hearing, which was scheduled for 7:20, it's now 7:58. The consideration of a proposed local law to amend chapter 237 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Highway, Streets, and Sidewalks, Article 4, obstructions. Anybody would like to come up from the public?
Don't do it.
Seeing no one, I will close the public comment section, but leave it open for written comment until March 29th. And we will move on to resolutions. Jim, I think you're up.
Can I call it? Resolution 179.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm there, yes. I thought there was
Wait.
comments, is there any
I'm sorry.
comments on the?
Yep.
I'm sorry, I jumped.
Is anybody that would like to come up and address any comments on any of the resolutions before we go through them?
Okay, 179, it's a CDBG Recovery Aid Project number 16915, it's budget adjustment, so moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
A resolution adopted. Resolution 180.
EEAC Benjamin Barn renovation project, great project. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
I'd just like to thank Pat Snyder for all of her years of service with the East End Arts Council. She's leaving. She's no longer going to be the director. She was a great grant writer and a great promoter of the arts in downtown, and she's done a great job. So, thank you, Pat. We will miss you, and I will vote yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 181.
1035 Pulaski Street, final change order for roof replacement, water capital project number 30145, budget adoption. So moved.
Seconded. Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 182.
Budget adjustment, buildings and grounds truck. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 183.
It doesn't say where
180.
the money is coming from and where it's going to in this fiscal impact statement. B&G funds to B&G trucks.
Can we look that up in work session?
Yes, we did.
We did.
We talked
Anyway,
about this in
okay,
work
I guess
session.
we'll deal with that
And
later,
Bill came up and talked about it.
Yes.
but
What?
it's not in the resolution. Anyway,
Not
Go ahead.
in the fiscal impact.
The fiscal impact statement isn't required now, we just ask people to start filling them out as a practice. If the resolution isn't here to pass it.
183 is a water district budget adjustment due to insurance recovery. So moved.
second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 184.
Authorizes-
I'm sorry, in the first whereas, there's a gap,
For 184?
right, it says
Okay.
pursuant to resolution, there's a space,
Mm-hmm.
that should be 184. I mean, 541, which was adopted on July 18th, 2017. So, we need to put in 541.
Okay, so I am going to ask that we make an amendment to resolution number 184 in the first whereas, where it says pursuant to resolution number 541, adopted on July 18th, 2017, and I'll move the resolution. Authorizes supervisor to execute a contract with the state of New York for CFA funding for the creation of a strategic parking implementation plan for downtown Riverhead. consolidated funding application for strategic planning and feasibility studies, round 7. So moved.
I will second that.
Moved and
As
seconded,
amended.
moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 185.
Authorizes acceptance of Suffolk County Downtown Revitalization Round 15 grant for Jamesport LED lights. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
I just expressed my concern, as I did at the work session, about the illumination of these lights, that they're bright enough to actually fill the area based on the LED lighting, and I know that our engineering department is perfectly capable of making sure that the right illumination is in place, so I will vote yes.
Wooten.
Yeah.
Jen Smith.
Yes, and just congratulations to the Jamesport Civic Association. I know they worked very hard to achieve this grant, to be able to change the lights down there, so thank you very much for that.
I'm in the dark.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 186.
Approves a professional services agreement with Sam Schwartz Consulting LLC for a parking implementation plan. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 187.
Getting there. 187 authorizes the Community Development Department Agency to apply for grant funding for culvert repair through the New York State DOT Bridge New York 2018 funding program and ratifies the pre-submission of that application. So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
I'm not Hubbard, I'm-
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 188.
Authorizes publication of a help wanted advertisement regarding attendance at Suffolk County Police Academy. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
This is for anybody who wants to become a part-time police officer in the town of Riverhead. I highly recommend it. That's how I started my career with the town. And if you're interested, I'm sure you can contact Mary at the chief's, at the Riverhead Police Department. I think she's extension 315.
It is, it's correct, it's actually in the resolution here,
Okay,
so if you
perfect,
go online, you can look at
perfect,
the.
yep, I see it, I see it. But I highly recommend, if you have any interest in law enforcement, it's a great way to get your foot in the door. So
And
yes.
And just a reminder, March 9th, I mean April 9th, before April 9th.
Right.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
I wonder if I can go back. I never passed the
Can
cycle.
you
Chief,
put
is
the
there an
uniform?
age limit on, with part-time work, is there an age limit?
I never passed it. I vote yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
I'm not sure either.
Resolution adopted.
I never passed the cycle.
Resolution
Go get
189.
them.
That's you, Hubbard.
Accepts the retirement of a police sergeant, so moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes, I spent a lot of time working with Sergeant Gleason, and I wish him nothing but the best in his retirement.
Giglio.
Ditto.
Wooten.
Yeah, over 30 years. Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 190.
Authorization to publish advertisement for townwide printing. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 191.
Authorizes notice to bidders for 211 East Main Street sanitary sewer improvements for Riverhead Sewer District contract number RDSD 17-10. So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 192.
Authorizes the town clerk to publish and post a public notice to consider a local law to amend chapter 301 entitled Zoning and Land Management of the Riverhead Town Code, Article 1, title, purpose, definitions, and interpretation. And this is for floor area of commercial developments such as hotels where in 2000 town, what?
Did you get to move and second it?
Yeah. If you're looking at it, it's you.
Oh, well, who's gonna second it?
I will.
But I'll just finish. So, what the town board did is, when it came to hotels, instead of saying that the floor area for the hallways and for the bathrooms and for the common areas in the hotels that wouldn't count towards their calculation of floor area as permitted in the code. And it made it so that developers didn't have to buy farm credits. And I didn't, when I was voting on it at the time, I didn't realize the ramifications of it, but being on the TDR subcommittee, I realized it was detrimental to preservation of farmland. So I definitely support this and reverting back to what it was for the extra square footage, even if it is common area for people that are staying in hotel rooms in the hotels. So I'll vote yes.
Well, you gotta move it first.
Well, yeah, move, you just first, and then you would like,
You made the
Sorry,
motion.
I'll move it. So
Seconded.
moved.
moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes to the public hearing.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 193.
Adopts a local law to amend Chapter 289 entitled Vehicle and Traffic Parking Regulations, Part 1 thereof entitled Vehicle and Traffic of the Riverhead Town Code, Chapter 289-29, Penalties. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 194.
Adopts a local law to amend chapter 255 entitled Parades, Assemblies, and Special Events of the Riverhead Town Code, 255-10, Conditions for Granting Permit. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution
I think we're
adopted.
gonna have to change this from 255, because every time it keeps going to 225.
It used to be 190.
No.
I like the first.
90, yeah, 90.
Okay. Resolution 195.
195 amends resolution number 97 of 2018, which offers support to the New York State Legislature to amend the general municipal law in relation to the creation of a Peconic Bay Regional Transportation Council. Senate Bill S. 3225, Assembly Bill A. 2671. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 196.
Just a comment on this resolution, it was just, we had passed this, but the bill number was incorrect, I believe it didn't have the A on it, so it was just changed. Not in this, that's what the resolution was.
Okay.
So did we rescind the other one and then adopt this one, or?
No, with correct ones.
Amended the last resolution.
Yeah, which, it's an amendment.
Okay.
Resolution 196.
Adopts a local law amending chapter 101 entitled General Provisions of the Riverhead Town Code, Fiscal Impact Statement Requirements. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 197.
Approves the Chapter 255 application of Church of the Harvest Youth Program Plant Sale Fundraiser, March 29th through March 31st, 2018. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 198.
Approves the chapter 255 application of Home Depot Development of Maryland Incorporated Plants Annuals and Tree Sale, March 26, 2018 through May 21st, 2018. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 199.
This approves the settlement of claim for Maria Dolce. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 200.
Authorizes the supervisor to execute an agreement with Epicor Software Corporation for upgrade of Doculux document management solutions. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 201.
Authorizes memo to department head. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
It's about that fire pit in the backyard that's next to
Oh, yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 202.
Authorizing removal of fixed assets records from systems. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Giglio,
Yes.
Wooten,
Yes.
Jen Smith,
Yes.
resolution adopted. Resolution 203.
I believe we're bunching,
This one isn't bunched, but after this one.
Number 203 appoints anti-bias task force members and officers. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent,
I vote yes, and I'm very pleased with this group.
Hubbard,
Yes to appointing a smaller village to this task force.
It really is.
It's a lot of people.
Giglio,
Yes, there's
All
like
good
25,
ones.
20.
Wooten,
4 men. Those 4 men. Yes.
Jen Smith,
Yes.
resolution adopted. Okay, so we
So this
have
next
the-
resolution, it will be resolution, do you want me to read this one off?
Go for it.
For resolution 204, for resolution 207, which appoints members to the Agricultural Advisory Committee. Can I have a first?
Okay.
I'll make a motion, we appoint the members to the Agricultural Advisory Committee, so moved.
Second?
Moved in second for resolution 204 through 207.
Kent,
And another great group, I vote yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Giglio,
Yes.
Wooten,
Yes.
Jen Smith,
Yes.
resolutions 204 through 207 are adopted. Resolution 208.
And we would do the same thing for the Landmarks Preservation Commission members, except they will have staggered terms, so we're going to pull them individually. So, appoints a member to the Landmarks Preservation Commission, and, I tell you, we have great members on there. Kelly Shager, she's an architect, she does a great job, so moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Giglio,
Yes.
Wooten,
Yes.
Jen Smith,
Yes.
resolution adopted. Resolution 209.
Do you mind if I call the next one, because we can't call them together?
Go ahead.
So, can I have a first and second for resolutions 209 through 212, which reappoints members to the Landmarks Preservation Commission? So can I have a first for 209 through 212?
First, so moved.
I'll second.
First and seconded, vote please.
Kent,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Giglio,
Absolutely, they do a great job.
Wooten,
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution 209 through 212 are adopted. Resolution 213.
Extends bid for dry hydrated lime calcium hydroxide for the Riverhead Water District. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Giglio,
They gotta come up with another company that makes this calcium hydroxide. Yes.
Wooten,
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 214.
Authorizes notice to bidders installation of tank mixer at plant number 8, Pelane North, Bating Hollow, Riverhead Water District, H2M project number RDWD 18-02. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Giglio,
Yes.
Wooten,
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 215.
An awards bid for annual procurement contract. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Giglio,
Yes.
Wooten,
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 216.
You're gonna have to wait a minute here. This is a long one.
Is it?
Right, yours, sure.
I'm getting there.
Oh, good.
A lot of stuff.
They should put zip tab these.
They listed about everything that the town ever buys, and it's page after page of items, so it takes a while to scroll through to it.
There you go. Authorization of town supervisor to execute final change order number 2 for the water district roof replacement. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Giglio,
No.
Wooten,
Yes, of course.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 217.
Pays the bills. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Giglio,
Yes.
Wooten,
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted.
At this point, if anybody would like to come up and address the board, I invite you to come up and state your name. Seeing no one, can I have a first and second to close the town board meeting?
I'll give you both.
I move we close the town board meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Everyone stay safe tomorrow in the snow. Hopefully it will be the last of the snowstorm.
There's no snow tomorrow.
All right.
Wet.